Hey guys, welcome back to another GvG focused video, and today I'm going to be teaching you all the basics of BP. For those of you who don't know, BP is one of the most important things to know when you're attacking, because the more BP you have, the stronger your soldiers get, and the easier it is to tear through teams. It can go from an impossible attack all the way to a trivial one, just based off of some BP tweaks. So I'm going to be teaching you guys everything that I know, everything that you need to know, and hopefully this will make attacking in guild versus guild easier. As you can see, this is my BP on one of my accounts, and I'm going to be walking you guys through how I reach these numbers and how you can reach these numbers too. So, first of all, to go into the basics, we have to go over how BP works. BP, also known as battle power, is essentially just a culmination of your stats. The game takes these stats, turns them into rough BP equivalent values, and they tally them up for your total BP. And then when you put this into your demon soldiers by going, to your demon soldier and you put it in, it's going to just apply extra stats. As you can see, the higher BP that we get by this number right here, which is correlated to your actual BP number, it will increase your unit's strength. Very, very, very important mechanic. And not every stat is created equally. There are some stats that are better than others, and I'm going to just kind of name them off to you guys now. So the things that you want to prioritize the most are the attack. The attack is always, or at least 99% of the time, the best stat to build. You want to have as much attack as possible. So when you're building with right side pieces, you want to have attack percent main every single time. The next stat that you want to focus, as you can see right here, is attack speed. This Uridan, despite it being my 5th gear set, so obviously it's not going to be as strong as some of my other units, there's a lot of attack speed, because attack speed is amazing for battle power or BP. Some units value different stats differently, but for the most part, you can go attack percent, then attack speed, and then crit damage and crit rate. Crit rate is really weird, where the second you get to 100% crit rate, the rest of the crit rate you get, let's say up to 120%, that 100% to 120% gives you 0. It gives you nothing, and it is a wasted stat. So when you're building your units, you really want to keep that in mind, because you want it to be less than 100%. I think it also depreciates after a certain period of time, like let's say 0 to 50% is more impactful than 80% to 100%. But at the end of the day, the more stats you have that give BP, the better. Beyond that point, when it comes to like 4th stats, this is completely hero dependent, and there doesn't seem to be that much of a baseline. For example, Uridan really likes HP bonus, and he really, really likes defense percent for Uridan, because his base stats are so high, and even beyond base stats, some units just benefit differently. So you can actually build him without attack flat right here if you want, because he benefits differently. But that'll be more of a later video that I'll make, which is like the best BP units and how to make them or build them or whatever. It differs heavily, but for the most part, HP and then defense. And then the stats that you want to avoid at all costs are Rage Regen and Healing Effect. They give next to none, and they are trash. I would avoid them every single time. Now, moving on, let's talk about the sets, because believe it or not, the sets and what you use are very important too, not just your stats. So there's one thing that you got to remember when it comes to sets, above all, which is Ageless Wrath is king when it comes to right side sets. Right side sets do not give BP, except for Ageless Wrath. Because the way that BP works is it is only your unit's stats before deployment. So when it says something like increases your attack, for example, or your healing effect, and then when deployed increases attack by 10%, let's say for Invig, that doesn't do anything, because BP is tallied before deployment. You're never deploying these units when you're using them for affiliation because it's just the raw stats. So things like Soulbound, Infernal Roar, anything, do not give BP. You are better off mix and matching sets than trying to match like an Infernal Roar and Soulbound. The only set that you need to make is Ageless Wrath, because it gives a 30% crit damage flat boost. This is applied immediately. If you take a piece like this off and you move it to, let's say, if I can find something better, this should be, better. Or we could go through here. This should be better, right? Much better rolls, much better stats. But it's not, because it breaks up the Ageless Wrath set, which gets rid of 30% additional crit damage. It's just worse. So you have to keep that in mind on the right side, that if you can make an Ageless set, it's almost always better, with one big caveat, which is exclusive gear. Here, I could go to my other Uridan, my better Uridan, and I could show you that I'm not running Ageless Wrath on the right. And that is because of this pesky little exclusive gear. Exclusive gear is so strong when you get good rolls. It has a much, much higher peak than Ageless Wrath does. Because the way that exclusives work is they give extra. That's it. It's not something complicated. It's just if you see an exclusive piece, it gives more. But you can go back to this other Uridan and look at this, and you'll see that despite it having a dead stat, which is what I like to call Rage Regen, which gives no battle power, it's still almost better. And what happens when you do this is you put this on, it lowers it a little bit. But what you can do is you can actually find better pieces. Like, for example, my other Uridan is running this, plus 500. He's also running, if I can find it, this, plus 500. That's almost 1,000 increase off of those pieces by losing about 300 on the ring. And that's just a ring that's missing an important fourth stat. If I had flat attack, HP, defense, or something, this would go up so much higher immediately. So you have to keep that in mind going into this. Rings are king if you can get the good stats for them. So things like Ingrid on the Watchguard faction, or Setram in the Infernal faction, like right here, is going to be better. Now, another thing to note is left side. You should always, always, always be syncing up the left side sets. It is not hard to sync them up. Warlord and Wicked Vengeance are going to be your two main ones. Wicked Vengeance is so good for this and should be your main priority because it has the opportunity to, first of all, have exclusive pieces like this. This is kind of bad because I don't have attack percent because I just don't have one on this account. But pretend that defense bonus is replaced with attack percent. But anyways, Wicked Vengeance is a lot better because it can have pieces with 4 stats on them. Like, for example, if I go to my Yovar, 4 stats is so much better. And they're also really good because they have exclusive pieces. So Yovar, Uridan, Valkyria, Setram, these units are all going to benefit so much by having their exclusive weapons. So you want to have those. You also could put on Warlord. This guy has Warlord because I don't have a better Setram exclusive on. Here, let me just kind of put something back there. But I don't have another good Setram exclusive. I mean, not Setram. Uridan exclusive. This is the best I have. And you could say it's a lot worse. Even if I were to put together, a chest plate as well. Just because the peak is higher, but Warlord is still pretty good. So you really want to have Warlord or Wicked Vengeance. And if the unit has an exclusive weapon and you have an exclusive weapon, you should always be putting it on. Something to note about chest plates as well. I'm kind of going off tangents now. I've kind of lost the plot. But basically, for chest plates, there's a couple things you want to look for, especially for Wicked Vengeance. You want to look for something with no crit rate. And I know that sounds counterintuitive because the higher your stats are, the better. But the way that BP tends to work is because you're just looking for the best raw stats, it's very often what's going to happen is you get enough crit rate that the chest plate just makes you go over. As you can see, I'm at about 110% because I don't have a better chest plate than this. And this is a good piece, don't get me wrong, but this crit rate is getting wasted a little bit. What you want to look for is one that has something like this: attack bonus, crit damage, and attack speed, and then flat attack. If you can get a Wicked Vengeance like this, hammer until it's like gold, because that's the ideal thing you want to look for. You can also get some HP or defense depending on the hero, but for the most part, it doesn't really matter. Wicked Vengeance, it's just like, if you can get attack speed on it, it's amazing with attack bonus and then crit damage. That's what you want to look for. Chest plates are very, very sought after right now because they're very hard to get a good one. For example, on Yovar, this is the chest plate that I have. This fourth stat is essentially garbage, but it's still better than the fourth stat pieces anyways, which is kind of interesting. So keep that in mind while going into it, that if you can get no crit rate on your chest plate and replace it with a stat that actually gives a benefit, then that's what you want to look for. Final thing that I think I need to mention before ending off this GvG BP basics is artifacts. And there's one very important thing to note about artifacts. Exclusives are king. I could show you what happens when I get rid of this Cetrum exclusive for something else. Icarus Chalice drops almost 3,000. The general baseline that you can take into account when looking at artifacts is exclusive artifacts give about 3,000 higher than non-exclusives. And also something to note is, with one exception, pretty much, most mythic artifacts are the same. As you can see, I swapped from Icarus Chalice to Spirit Siphon. It's going to be almost exactly the same, right? So you want to really prioritize exclusives, with one caveat, which is Wailing Skull. Wailing Skull is coded weird, in which it has the BP of an exclusive artifact, and you don't need an exclusive artifact for fighters because Wailing Skull is so good. You can see that I put on Scarlet Hunt, and I go down almost 3,000 BP. That's because Wailing Skull gives exclusive levels of BP. It's not different. So for fighters, you always want to have Wailing Skull on them. And for everyone else, like marksmen, mages, like all of these things, you want to have their exclusive artifacts. Here, my Yovar doesn't have it because I don't have it on this account. But the second I get Yovar's exclusive max, this will be about a 123k Yovar. So keep that in mind when going into it. Now, there are still a couple other things to go with BP, like Lords get hidden boosts. Like, despite this being 120k here, my Yovar is actually quite a bit better than my Yrden on this account. There's a lot of hidden things there. You can watch this video on the screen if you want to kind of go into more of a deep dive into that, to kind of show the culmination of everything through this entire video. I wanted to show off my main accounts. Yrden. I have some other BP units. This is not my top 5 or anything, but this is my biggest BP. 134k Yrden. This thing stomps most defenses in the game. I want to show why it's so high. First of all, Wailing Skull. Best artifact in the game for fighters, only tied with exclusives. Next, we go on to these pieces. You can see that I have a ring. Cursed Cultist Ring. It has really, really good stats, obviously. Gear, the better the rolls are, the better it'll be, obviously. But I have defense bonus here, which Yrden actually really likes. So it's actually quite good here. Next, I have this piece, which could be a little bit better. I have a couple pieces close to it, but this is still the best, which is, just higher rolls and defense bonus. Then I have this, which doesn't look as good as the other pieces on paper, but I do have a variant, which I didn't talk too much about, but variants can have flat attack or flat increases, and can actually get your BP up. Then I have this, which is a no crit rate chest plate. Unfortunately, the rolls can't get any better because it is ancient. So if you can get like an exclusive piece that can roll better, that is ideal. Use a bunch of hammers. But this is no crit rate. Also one of the stats that the unit I'm using it on works with. And then this. I cannot refine the crit damage, unfortunately, because I did the attack speed before I re-rolled it to this. But then I have a 4-stat weapon with good rolls. This is how you get your units very high. Obviously, it depends on the rolls, but there are a lot of things that go into this, like breaking the set to use the ring, using the proper stuff on the left, artifacts, knowing what to use beforehand and what to use your hammers on in order to get the highest BP helps a lot. And trust me when I say, I have a very easy time attacking because of this. Also, my anger is kind of pretty high, but we don't talk about that. All right, that should be everything. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this helped out at least a little bit. Let me know if it helps you get your BP higher or anything, and if there's anything I missed or that you would like to learn. And that's it for me. Destined signing out.